So good, so good, so good.
Everything you want for summer is at Nordstrom Rack stores now, and up to 60% off. Stock up and save on the brands you love like Vince, Sam Edelman, Frame, and Free People. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
Hello and welcome to this very special episode of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie film to studio films and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to royally F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. I am Giles Alderson. I'm a writer, I'm a director, and I produce movies as well. And today, like I say, is a very special episode because we are taking you inside the eye of the awards storm. Yeah, that's right, we're sitting down with the team behind one of the most talked about British films of the year. A film that has just secured a staggering 6 BAFTA nominations, including Best British Film, Best Actor, and Best Original Screenplay. We are talking about the incredible drama, I Swear. In part 1, we are joined by the producing powerhouses behind Tempo Productions. First, a returning friend of the show, Piers Tempest. You know him as the man who balances massive scale with intimate dramas, producing everything from the Oscar-nominated The Wife and Ordinary Love to the recent historical epic William Tell. Joining him is his fellow producer, Georgia Bayliff. She's a rising force in the industry who has shepherded films like the thriller Paradise Highway with Juliette Binoche and Morgan Freeman, and who was instrumental in getting this sensitive, beautiful story of I Swear to the screen. Then in part 2, myself and Dom Lenoir are joined by the writer and director of the film, Kirk Jones. Kirk is a legend of British cinema. He exploded onto the scene with the comedy classic Waking Ned, directed the beloved blockbuster Nanny McPhee, and helmed huge studio hits like My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. But with I Swear, he has returned to his independent roots to tell the true story of John Davidson, a man fighting for acceptance with severe Tourette's syndrome. So we, myself and Dom, dive into many questions with these 3 amazing guests. We talk about casting the BAFTA-nominated Robert Aramayo, who stars in Rings of Power, how to produce a crowd pleaser, about a difficult subject, and exactly what it feels like when your passion project gets the nod from the awards. We talk about producing movies just like this, how you get them off the ground, how you raise money, how you direct movies like this, and how you find the project in the first place, which is exactly what Kirk did. This film, by the way, I Swear, has already won the BAFTAs. It's not won them all, but it won Best Lead Performance and Best Casting, the BAFTAs, British Independent Film Awards, late last year in 2025. It's a true story, by the way, I swear, about the real John Davidson, and he is an executive producer on the film. So, not only do we talk awards success, casting, making a true story, we also talk about directing craft, how Kirk Jones manages tone between comedy and tragedy. And Piers and Georgia give you some amazing producing advice, and how Tempo Productions sustains a slate of excellent mid-budget films. I Swear is out now. I think it might still be screening in various cinemas, but it's definitely on Prime and other selected platforms right now. It is on Amazon Prime. Go check it out. And it'll be coming very soon to the USA via Sony Pictures Classics. So, first of all, though, sit back, relax, and enjoy part 1 of this week's Filmmakers Podcast with Georgia Bayliff and Piers Tempest. And like I say, after that, we will be joined by director Kirk Jones. Enjoy. This is a belter.
Hi to you both. Hey Dom, how are you?
Very good, very good. How are you both doing?
Not too bad. Strong.
Thanks.
Strong for a Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is.
Is it offensively early for one of you? Is that right?
Not offensively, but it is 7:30. But that's not.
Oh,
too
7:30. Okay.
It's manageable.
Yeah, still
Manageable,
survivable.
Still crazy early. How come you're over there at the moment, Georgia?
Taking a break, just having a ski holiday soon.
Oh, lovely.
Bless you. And yet this is a break where you're having to do a podcast. You're like, oh,
No, but it's always nice to jump back into I Swear because it was such a fun project to be part of. So
yeah,
it's great to chat about it.
Yeah,
well, this is the pre-ski warm-up for you then.
Exactly.
Yeah, pre-ski.
I'm very, very, very happy to be speaking to you both, and it's definitely like one of my favourites of the year. I've got quite a few BAFTA friends, and it's the one that a lot of them have been talking about as their kind of real heartfelt sort of indie gem. And just as a shout out, I remember I think I met you 2 years ago at Cannes, Georgia.
Yeah.
And my memory was, I think it was at a Scottish event, and my memory was that I'd spent a lot of Cannes pitching drama, and everyone sort of looked at me like I was just insane for wanting to make a drama film. And you were the first person that genuinely was excited, interested, and sounded like, just have a passion for making sort of meaningful stories. And it really made my Cannes. So I just wanted to say,
sweet.
It's lovely to
Well, I think
lovely to
you
be
spoke
back.
passionately, didn't you, about a project? I think it was set in America and Canada, and it was character-led drama, which is something that Tempo is really interested in.
Yeah,
Finding roles that actors, are enticed to play. So, yeah, you can always sense when somebody's passionate about something quite meaningful. So.
That's great. And Dom's project is
See you again.
amazing as well. And it's so
nice to see
good.
you.
Yeah, when you get that passion behind it. And Georgia, I suppose at the time, did you have I Swear? Because I know that Kirk was talking to the team behind it quite in sort of 2022. So that would have been around then. Was I Swear on the cards around that time? Was that something?
I think it might have been about 3 years ago that Dom and I met. And I think probably 2 years ago was when I Swear came in. I think we turned it around really quickly because I think they sent about 30. I think Piers can speak more to it, but I think him and Kirk knew each other before and were trying to get another project going.
Yes.
And then he sent about 30 pages of this script, didn't he, Piers? And
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
That's quite incredible.
And we read it. We read the first 30 pages and thought, let's see if this is something. And I think we could tell quite quickly that there was something important to be told, but it was being told in a fun, commercial and engaging way. I mean, if you can read a script in 30 pages in, you want to read the rest, then you're onto something.
Yeah.
So we turned it around quite quickly and said, send us the full script. And then I think with Tempo, kind of that's the name of the game, is trying to get things into production quickly. And if we believe in something, then it's all guns,
All
firing.
guns blazing.
Yeah, all guns blazing.
I love that.
Was there any accompaniment that went with those sort of first 30 pages? Was there any mood boards, or was it, here's the idea, have a read, see if you sort of connect with what the story's about?
Well, it was I think a lot of it was, so I've been working with Kirk on a film with Constantine, and had Kirk attached to a movie, and they asked me to produce it. And I knew Kirk and had got to know him during that process. And the film, for whatever reasons, didn't happen. So I think a lot of it was driven by the desire to work with Kirk as a filmmaker, because you can see in I Swear, it's need, to me, for the film to work and to connect with audiences, it really needed a commercial filmmaker on it who has had the Waking Neds and the Nanny McPhees, because you could have, if you don't get that tone absolutely right and deal with the subject matter in such a kind of brilliantly tonally accurate and commercial way, because I don't think the film would have worked at all as good. And I think it would have been a different story. So reading, as Georgia says, when we read those 30 pages, in the knowledge that it was Kirk who was writing and directing, we knew how passionate he was about it. And you respond to that passion as well from a filmmaker. I knew he would be totally obsessed with this and would give it 150%. And that was in the back of our minds when we were reading it. And also, much like Bank of Days, it had the documentaries and it had that base of people who knew who John Davidson was. And lastly, my ex-brother-in-law has Tourette. quite badly, and my knee, and so I knew I've known about Tourette's since I was 15, and kind of just got how exhausting it was, but how funny it is at times as well when you get into situations.
Yeah.
So for all of those reasons, it just ticked the boxes we looked for as a company, and it had that great personal connection, and it was a filmmaker who we loved. So for all those reasons, it was multiple ticks basically. And the last time,
literally as well,
and Georgia and I worked together was on The Wife. So we had a very successful sort of and that again, that was a performance piece. So it sort of was in our ballpark in terms of how we like to work as well.
Yeah, I mean, on that, like when you get a project like that, it is a drama, it is a tough subject. How did you find, and we're jumping straight in here, in terms of the financing of this, and when a film like this comes your way, and okay, people do know of John Davidson a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's a tough subject. It's hard to sort of go, hey, this will be a fun commercial award-winning movie. When you first get a script through like this, or even an idea, how do you go about going, okay, well, the script is now done. How do you go about going from that point to going, okay, how do we actually get funding? Because we're probably going to have to cast someone who isn't a name. How do you move forward at that point?
Well, Giles, we've been on before. We've talked at length about this, so we might as well be absolutely honest.
Yes,
together.
Please. Let's do it again.
You can't think of a more difficult film to finance, basically. So because it's got a Kirk is a commercial director. So forget it about you can't go to any of the normal sources of funding in the UK because, great, there was a director who just did Nanny McPhee. It's not, to me, the way the industry works in terms of BFI, BBC Films, it's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then you also think, okay, you have to cast an actor. It's so important, this film, for the Tourette's community and to honouring John's story. You just can't, you have to cast the right person who's going to deliver a performance. So in terms of how the film industry works in pre-sales and that's not helpful, basically. Then the first meeting I had, and this is absolutely true, I was pitching the movie, and I'm not going to say who it was, but they said, "Oh, we really love it, but you've got to take the swearing out of the movie to make it more commercial."
That's ridiculous.
At that point, I was like, "Oh my God, this is like literally, how the hell are we going to put this together?" There was so basically we decided to make the film for the lowest possible amount humanly possible, not take any fees on the film as a company. Kirk worked literally just stripped it to the bare minimum in order that Kirk could have as much creative control and effectively make the films he wanted to make for the actors he wanted to put into it. And it was a massive roll of the dice on it. And then the idea is to get it, finance it like that, lowest possible amount. And then as soon as we are able to, we have footage, start trying to collateralize the equity in there into pre-sales and do that. So I think I cannot, and even looking back, incredibly risky, because obviously the film didn't work. It would be a disaster. It's not Nicolas Cage playing John Davidson. Exactly. So you can't get all those European
would have been mad
backstop pre-sales, which would have been mad.
Yeah.
So thank God it worked. You know what I mean? But it was literally, it doesn't fit into the model. And I think that's why it's so exciting for the independent film community that it has worked, because here you've got a story that's connected with audiences. Studio Canal, amazing job. Over £6 million in the box office. Amazing. Incredible support.
Amazing, yeah.
And it's connected because it's a great movie. It's about something interesting. And it just shows that the story is interesting. It's about something that's authentic, and it has that great performance, which is what independent film can deliver. it's a great good news story for the industry.
It's really interesting. I mean, the word commercial that's sort of been used a lot here, and there's very clear connotations with sort of pre-sales and the traditional market. And when I think back about the films that I loved over the years that are the most successful, and the ones that I've watched over and over again, they're often really hard-hitting dramas, or they're things that make you laugh and you sort of empathize with the characters. And it's the difficulty of trying to get something like this made, which, if it connects with the right audience, they're going to empathize with the lead character, they're going to empathize with the parents, they're going to empathize with the Peter Mullen's character and all the people that sort of along the way. And there's kind of nothing more commercial for an audience to connect with than those sort of elements, but it's getting past the hurdles of the sort of preconceptions of what makes a popcorn movie. And it sort of always blows my mind, because this is the kind of film that is universally exciting. It's the kind of thing that if you get an idea of what it's about, it's immediately like, that sounds like a story that I want to go and watch. I could watch it with my family. Good sort of fun cinema experience with friends.
Yeah. But John, the thing that drives me bonkers as well is that if you look at all those UK movies that have broken out, look at Billy Elliot, look at Full Monty, you look at
King's Speech.
King's Speech is a bit of an exception, but I was going to say they haven't had cast. East is East.
Good point.
They haven't. Those movies haven't had that train spotting at the time. They didn't have those sort of those kind of big actors who they just were really good movies, which, as you say, Dom, allowed that empathy which cinema is built for, and just connected with them. So I'm really hoping we can, this will help other independent producers get other movies like this off the ground, which are just, traditionally extremely difficult. But every now and then one comes along and reminds everyone that we can do it, and we can compete.
Yeah, I love that.
Sorry, Giles.
Yeah, no, I really do love that. And Georgia, for you then, how is that coming on board? You're a very hands-on producer from what I hear as well. So you're coming on board something, especially after William Tell and The Wife before that, which you guys worked on together, which were bigger budgets. And suddenly you're now making something on a stripped back budget. How do you go about doing that, and what the challenges you had to overcome at that point?
Yeah, well, I think just going back to the last question as well, I think there's definitely room for kitchen sink type British films. Absolutely. And there are audiences for those. But I think, when we read the first 30 pages of this script, what enticed us was that it was something that could be told through a very gritty lens, a very social realist lens. But the first 30 pages showed that, there was a light being shone on it in a way that people were able to watch it. And in a way that opened their eyes and wasn't too depressing. And that was really because of the way that actually John Davidson lives his life. It was based on his unique experience of Tourette's. And I think also within those first 30 pages, it gave you permission to laugh.
Yes.
We were never laughing at the Tourette's. We were laughing with John at the kind of the context of what would happen with Tourette. So yeah, when we got those, we realised it was a project we wanted to make. But as Piers said, we knew there were going to be the typical challenges. So I think that year we did 4 films. This was one that we sort of did it as a real passion project. So yeah, we just had to sort of tighten the shoelaces. And one of the big challenges was finding the crew for the film, because we knew it was going to be particularly low budget. Shooting in Scotland is amazing because there's such a depth of crew. I mean, it's changed and grown since Piers and I did The Wife there, which is incredible. Screen Scotland is a great resource to use.
Yes.
But we weren't even able to access, the funding that would help on a Scottish film. So yeah, we just built it from the ground up. So finding a line producer that maybe didn't have a wealth of experience, but that we felt we could sort of support from, behind the.
Basically, the short version of that is finding crew that loved it and wanted to be involved, including, and this is nuts.
Sorry about that. I don't know where it cut off, but effectively I was saying that we, the way we built the crew was from ground up, finding, this kind of more production accounting, production management, line producing gigs with people who are maybe taking their next step up that we believed in, finding heads of departments that were willing to come on board a low budget production, but then also with our relationships with Kirk Jones relationships, finding some talent that wanted to fill in heads of department roles that we felt were particularly important, such as production sound. So we had Simon Hayes, who Kirk Jones had worked with previously. He's, I think, 3 times Oscar winning, and Oscar nominated for Gravity, Les Miserables. And obviously sound is really important for the film. So it was very much about building the team where we were giving step up in certain positions, but then also having some people with, wealth of experience that would sort of help support the crew. And I think really that built an amazing atmosphere on set, because everybody that was there really wanted to be there. Everyone that was there cared enormously about the project. In a weird way, I found that it was almost like an easy project to produce, because you'd send the script to somebody, you'd demonstrate your passion, and very quickly they were on board the train to getting it to production. So
just to add on that, Simon Hayes, I've produced 34 films now. This was the only film we did not have any ADR, because can you believe that? There's no ADR on the film. It does not a day, not a session, nothing, because he was so good.
Oh my
God.
gosh.
And the production sound was so well done. None was needed, which is just insane when you think about it.
That is insane. Which is,
I know.
It's so, just going on that, and it's so important to get your crew right on films anyway. But when people are passionate about something, sometimes they're there for the right reason, and they'll push that little bit harder, and they're there because they care, rather than, okay, this is another big budget movie, I'm here because I'm getting paid, it's nice. But when they get a script they fall in love with, and you trust your crew, and you say, hey, we're stepping you up, we're giving you this responsibility, they seem to work harder and care more, and it seems like that happened on I Swear massively.
Absolutely, the care. And John would come and visit set a couple of days, and we had a lot of individuals and actors from the Tourette community come to perform. So it was really important for everybody. They hugely cared. And I think even sometimes people think if something's low budget, I think a lot of people will watch I Swear and think it was a huge film. They'll think a lot of the other films that are out there on the circuit at the moment were sort of lower budget. This was incredibly low budget, but it was a huge film to produce. I think we had 60, 70 locations, 170 sets. I've never moved around on production that much. I think we were moving twice a day, barely in the same location overnight. So it was a huge endeavour, and it was a massive challenge, the amount of extras that, the assistant directors were having to source on a daily basis, quick turnarounds for costumes, having to find, wardrobe that fit these extras that they'd meet on the day of or the day before.
Oh my gosh.
So it was really, it was a quick moving production, but it was incredible how dedicated everyone was. And it was just a great atmosphere on set, because everyone was really, really happy to be there. And I think for us, it's, meaningful that the Tourette community is sort of getting a lot of awareness now, but also that, that for the production team, that they've seen how, getting involved in a project like this really pays off. That if you really believe in it, I think sometimes your instinct can really speak truth. So it's great to see it, reaching audiences on such a scale.
I feel like when it is a story that people care about, there's a reason that, when they're staying in the overtime, or it's raining and it's miserable, or you're lugging kit up and you've got to, going with all those location changes is pretty arduous, especially when you're, deprived of sleep and you've got to haul everything up. It's, it's just such a battle. A good chance to talk about Remo, who's your fantastic first AD. I had the pleasure of working with him on something a bit smaller up in Scotland, and he's like a really, really, really good person to have in the trenches with you. Can we talk about just how the schedule worked, how you managed to prioritize maybe what you had to lose on working on such a tight sort of number of locations?
Yeah, one of the first things I think that's really important as a producer to do for schedule is, once you've got the lead actors' contracts is to, in red on an Excel, document all the days that they're not available. Rob is actually a big star in his own right because of the TV that he's been doing for Lord of the Rings. So he had a lot of press that he was flying away for that. He's in nearly every scene. So that was kind of, a big thing to work around. We had a lot of minors on set. So understanding Scottish minor rules, I think they can be there for 9.5 hours, but they can only shoot for 4 hours. So really being aware of that, making sure that your crew or your first AD understands those rules, and that they've got the support in their team that are actually monitoring. Because, Remo was unbelievable. He's a producer in his own right, but having ADs that can make sure that they're actually monitoring the time means that you're abiding by all those rules. You're protecting your minors on set. So that's really important. And then, I think sometimes it's the chicken and the egg about locations and the actual, chronology of how you want to shoot something. So originally we found an amazing building in Scotland that we thought we were going to build all our sets in, book it for the shoot. But we quickly learned that everything was costing a lot, timber, any kind of build was going to cost more than actually going to location. So very quickly we had to sort of pivot on that idea. But it ended up being useful for having a production office, having somewhere that we could take, the children. But those were kind of the factors that we had to really think about. And then it is backing into what locations are available when we needed to find, what the director wants versus what's easy for us. There was a community centre that Kirk was adamant about because he so wanted it to reflect where John had really worked. And sometimes, we might try to convince him, well, there's this great other community centre and this is why it's great. There's a base nearby. And,
exactly.
That's the dialogue, I suppose, that you always have producer director.
There's toilets there. Exactly. We can cook. We can bring a food in.
It does help back up your argument, though. If you've got like a sort of a producer-friendly reason behind, well, we can do it for this reason.
Yeah.
Well,
the trick is trying to frame it in a way that it's the director's idea. That's creative management, basically.
He is very good at that. Yeah. No, so that's good. But sometimes, there are those moments, and I have to say, Kirk is an absolute dream to work with. And there were times where I, would have to sit down one night and say, these are the struggles we're dealing with. There are 3 major issues for the art department. We need to take one of the issues away. This is how I think we can solve it. Which are you happy with? And there are times where a director will just sit and go, okay, I get it. We can't put them under strain when there's all these other things that they really need to focus on. So Kirk was brilliant with that. The community centre, he was absolutely certain about what he wanted. And he's right. When you look at the film, that it was his home, wasn't it? That's where John Davidson really found his identity. It's where he developed that mentor relationship with, Tommy Trotter. So the director was right. And that was something that we really, really had to work around. But, again, those are the kind of dialogues that you're having throughout shoot.
There's also one kind of small thing as well, which you kind of touched upon a little bit there. We originally said about how hard it is to make these kind of dramas on a budget. But the other side, I think, as a producer and a director, when you're approaching this from either of those angles or anyone really from the team, and you've got this kind of story, I find that goes like a really long way in terms of being able to negotiate deals, because people are like, okay, this isn't just like a popcorn film. This isn't like a commercial entity that's just like, lining lining someone's pockets. It's like, it's a story that people really care about, especially when it's like community based. I mean, did you find that kind of helped in like the way that you were pitching things and maybe greasing some of the wheels along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think also quite often you can just say, look, everyone's on the same deal. And that helps because, then people feel like they're part of a team. No one feels like they're getting more than the other. Some places are just commercially driven for good reason. Maybe businesses, they just need that for to hit their bottom line. I think some places, for example, if you're using a location needing to shut a street and it's affecting businesses on that road, sometimes those businesses just won't care because you're affecting their income for the day. You're going to kill footfall. So sometimes you have to, work a little, a little bit of cash that helps them for the day, and it doesn't mean that they've made all their, a loss of earnings. But in terms of actual locations and other deals, majority of the time it helped. And sometimes, I think there was once a day before we lost a football pitch, major disaster. But, I think then I was able to get on the call with somebody from the council and then the football pitch. And I think sometimes just being really able to appeal and sort of demonstrate something.
Yeah, demonstrate why you're doing it and the good cause of it. And
exactly. Actors as well. And actors like with, Peter, Shirley, they are, they all joined the movie for, just for the love of it, really. It wasn't for the
not
fees,
for the Ferraris.
like that. No, not for the Ferraris.
No, I mean, love those films, but they've got budget to play with. And some people might just say no because for right reason. But I think with us, they felt okay. There's something important here, and I also think actually when it's a Scottish homegrown story, that the Scots like supporting the Scots, and a lot of people knew of John. So John was a big factor. When we said it was his story, they loved him. They knew about his documentary, or they had family members who grew up in the town he was in. So
Yeah, which is great. He was also an EP on the film. How did that help impact not only getting people to support, but having him on set for guidance and maybe for Robert as well?
Well, I think on set we kept Robert, and so Rob. It's really interesting. He actually went and lived down in Galashiels with John. Went to work with him. Went for bike rides. They went fishing together with Scott Ellis Watson, who played young John. So they knew each other. They're the best of pals now. They've got a real friendship. But on set, Rob needed to be kept separate from John because that was just part of his performance. And John wholeheartedly understood. So when he'd come down, we'd make sure that they were separate. But he was there every time that we had any of the children or adults from the Tourette community. We had about 30 or 40 people performing in the film. So we had a couple of days that they were on set. So along with having an access coordinator, John was there that day because we wanted to make sure that everyone was protected, felt safe. And the day before, I think before shooting, we had a day where everyone could meet each other, and John was there and hosted that. So he was really hands-on. And I think, with the script with Kirk as well, he was sort of involved every step of the way. So Kirk and John have a very, very close relationship.
It sounded like things went well, for an indie film like this, especially sort of, William Tell recently, it was a nice big budget for you as well, Piers, to come, making something that you care about and passionate about for a very low budget, as it were. But yet it seemed to go well. Maybe you could touch on the problems before we talk about, the success now as well with the releases. What were the things that you went, ooh, okay, that was tough, not having the money to solve that or to fix this? Or is it the same problems, just with more money?
I think it's the same. I think a lot of it's the same problems you always have. I mean, we did get a little very nervous about, we didn't find young John until 2-3 weeks before we started filming.
Wow.
And it was a complete fluke because actually Scott's brother was sending in an audition tape, and Scott's mother said, "Oh, you've never acted before. Why not do a tape as well?" So it was complete luck.
Wow.
That we found Scott. So those kind of
serendipity.
Filmmaking gods are shining.
Yes.
Then it's good. But the film is not, as George has alluded to, it's not 3 people in a room talking. No. It's actually, when you break down, it's huge. It's period. It's got kids. It's got a lot of extras, a lot of locations. There's, the nature of it, it's exhausting. And Georgia did an incredibly good job on set managing that whole process with Kate Eldridge, who was our production manager, and Graham, the line producer. There was a lot, but like this, when you grab it, you slightly think, oh my God, how did that actually, so much could have gone wrong.
Totally. Well, it sounds like you did an incredible job, like the team.
Yeah. And it was a lot, it was a constant, but lots of micro dramas every day. But again, and it's the same thing, when you're putting a film together, the crew, you're bringing on the best people who can deal with change, they can deal with crisis, they can deal with sort of situations, and that's what you're banking on. Because the film never goes smoothly. There's always something.
Yeah. I mean, other than the football pitch, which obviously that's like one of the worst things that can happen, is losing a location very last minute. But I mean, other than that, were there many reschedules along the way? Was there a lot of like shots that needed to be slightly trimmed down? I mean, how much compromise, or were you just sort of set up and ready to go, quick shooting and kind of got into the flow of it and kind of smashed through it?
Well, sometimes you have to pretzel a schedule a bit because you have an actor who has to go off and do press, and sometimes it's not always confirmed. So you might schedule something and think, okay, we're going to schedule it for our dream scenario. These are the locations that are available. This is sort of how we want it. And then something will come up and you have to adapt to it. So there were those elements. And those are the times where you're having late night conversations about if we move this or we do this, or calling all the other agents of other, supporting actors. Are they available here, there? So it becomes huge, maneuvering dance. I think, somebody was ill, having to move things around for that. Again, maybe a location not being available, or sometimes a department might just be really under strain. I think that's also important, is if you have a good relationship with the heads of departments and you can go in and just say, we're here to support you. You're not being forced to do something that's the impossible. So I found it useful just to go into the art department and just say, give me what are your 3 biggest dramas? What's the thing that's worrying you the most? So I think we had a supermarket that we had to build. That's not easy when it's period as well.
Wow. Yeah.
A courthouse. We were going to build a courtroom in this big building that we'd rented for the whole duration. And I think maybe the community centre was one of them. And there was, I think, another one. So yeah, making sure that you can step in and, the production team can come and support and find solutions and, go and have those dialogue, the conversations with the director to say, look, this is reasonable. This might not be. We need to try and find a solution to help them. Another one that was a challenge was that we were filming on a train, which I sort of somehow forgotten about.
It's all right. We'll just go on the train.
Yeah,
it's all right.
We did have to go and do a day pickup because we were affected by a train strike. Which I think wasn't even like an official strike. So again, all these things have the language of these things affect your insurance. There's always stuff. I mean, you can, at the end of the day, you might come home and talk about it, and it's like a shopping list of different things that have happened. At the end of the shoot, you forget it because you're just, like Piers says, it's always amazing when you get to the last day and you can wrap up production.
Yes.
But yeah, the train was a big one. We had to go back up to a completely other location in Scotland, and that was getting the crew back, a skeleton crew back together, and doing that within a set budget. Yeah, that's a challenge, and the lead actor, having to bring him back. But Rob was he was an amazing, he was so on board with everything with the production. He understood what the budget, level was. He understood how much effort everyone was putting into it. So he was, and again, he cared deeply about John. So
and
he was all in. He said, whatever day you need me after the shoot, I'm there.
That's amazing.
And he lived in America, so that really helped.
Wow. Yeah, it does come across, his performance in it is incredible. The film itself is incredible. It is beautiful. Dom did describe it earlier, sort of the King's Speech of this year. It was like, no, this is this is the BAFTA one. This is the one we should all be talking about. Yeah, quote Dom on that if you like. But I think, when did you know? Like, when did you realise you...
Bonjour, compadre. It's the
Priceline Negotiator.
How do I negotiate so many great travel deals? My greatest gadget, the Priceline app. It's got hotel deals, flight deals, rental car deals, all of those deals in a bundle. Deals, game day deals, concert trip deals. No one deals more deals than Priceline. Hold your horses, there's more. The app lets you filter hotels by neighborhood, vibe, star level, and amenities like pools and spas and beachfronts and... Wait, I'm not done. Stop cutting me off.
Priceline.
Have you ever rearranged your furniture and discovered the carpet underneath looks brand new while the rest of it looks, well, not so new? It's time for a carpet upgrade. At the Home Depot, we have stylish choices at simple prices from all the top brands. Best of all, we can install it for you, starting at only 49 cents per square foot. So all you have to do is pick your perfect floor. Start your carpet project today at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Exclusions apply for licenses. See homedepot.com/license numbers.
At first, I didn't think it was real. I woke up to this blinding light, and I was transported to another place. Pluto TV! Then I heard a voice.
Come with me if you want to live.
There were thousands of movies and shows, and they were all free. The truth is ours. It's just so beautiful.
On Pluto TV, free streaming of Terminator 2, Fringe, Arrow, The 100, and The X-Files may cause excitement, loss of sleep, and sudden belief in extraterrestrials. No credit cards or alien encounters necessary. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Had something special, like in terms of when you first started showing it to people, and quickly I'd like to wrap up
and as
on
an award to consider.
Yeah, how did you think? Okay, how do we target the awards? How do we do this cleverly, so we're not just putting it out on a certain platform?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting you say about Giles because there's a lot of thing I absolutely love about this whole process. It genuinely is organic. Basically, it's like there's some films that will remain nameless, which are awards machines.
Yes.
Everything from day one has been built around getting the award for that actor.
Yeah,
release date,
indeed.
Everything. We are this is just not the case. Basically, Studio Canal were brilliant. When I saw the market promo for the film, which was done brilliantly by Silk Factory, who were great. We use them for all our films.
Yeah, they've just done ours for
that
sessions.
Market promo is brilliant. Yeah. That market promo, which is very similar to the trailer, was so good. I just thought, oh my God, actually, this might really have, just worked in the best possible way. And then we showed it to Studio Canal, and we only showed it to one. And Studio Canal then ordered the film on that based on the promos, which was great. And actually, to me, they were the absolutely the best company for it, because just that pedigree, the ability to release it wide and to support a movie. So that just was always the anchor. And then I think the strategy was absolutely brilliant, because it was like, there isn't a big actor to hang the film around, but we knew the word of mouth. Oh no, we did a test screening, an NRG test screening, 300 people in Wimbledon, and it was the highest ever NRG score ever.
Wow.
It was insane. It was like literally 98% top two boxes. Highly recommend 100%.
Oh.
So at that stage, we were like, okay, this is good. This is good. And so the strategy that Studio Canal did was to do, I think, 20 or 25 free screenings around the UK prior to the release, in order to start generating that word of mouth. And Kirk was brilliant. Kirk was at all of them, most of them doing Q&As and just really trying to grow it organically and letting the film speak for itself, because, the best way to market a film is referral. And so we knew, if we can get the people into the cinema, then it's going to work. And before the NRG screening, we actually did a test screening in Bristol, where Kirk lives.
Right.
And again, that had such a strong rating. But then we thought, okay, this is too good. No one's going to believe it, basically. We go to Studio Canal and say, do you know what I mean? So then we did the second one. And I think, but I think everyone was then, okay, actually, this is going to work. But it's amazing. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me how much effort and thought and goes into the marketing and getting that film to be successful at the box office. And it just scares me in a way, because if we'd had the wrong distributor, we could have made the best film in the world, and it's done $500,000 at the box office, and it's great. It's done really well for it, but it just wouldn't have caught fire like this one has. So
yes,
it's filmmaking is such a team effort. It's just, I don't think there's anything like it, where you have to have complete sort of, for it to work, every element of the process, from development to acting to HODs to production to financiers to the sales to the distribution. It's all got to work, and it's got to hit the zeitgeist to make for an audience zeitgeist, and then you've got half a chance. So it's what makes it exciting.
It does. It does.
Yeah, I think what sort of stood out. Well, I think what stood out when in the screening that I went to, and the kind of afterthoughts, was that it was an award season caliber film, but it wasn't showy. It wasn't trying to be something. It wasn't like throwing filmmaking in your face. And I think when you're sort of saturated with watching a lot of films that are doing that, and you just feel something that's genuine and it has its heart on its sleeve, that can be the thing that really like resonates and stands out from the crowd. And I do feel like that's where the word of mouth sort of began, and why it came up in so many conversations over the last sort of 4 or 5 months when I've been out to screenings and listening to things.
No, I think you're absolutely right, because it genuinely was made. Kirk made this from such an authentic place in order to do a service to John's story. There's literally nothing cynical about it. And I think audiences now can read if something's like trying to be put together by the numbers, and it's kind of this manipulation. And this was so the opposite of that. It's just literally came because of Kirk's just desire to tell John's story in the most authentic, accurate way possible. That was, and I think that's just shone through. And I think actually, weirdly, that's what's going to make this film travel as well, because it's universal. It's kindness. It's about the whole support and celebrating difference and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I hope it does. I really do hope it does travel.
Fingers crossed.
Well. Fingers crossed indeed. And Georgia, just to wrap up from your side of it, what did you learn from this film that you're going to take forward to the next one? And you're probably already making the next one, but in terms of where you're at, what did you learn for our listeners out there to glean?
I think if you read a lot and you consume a lot, if you're a cinephile, you love cinema and you love scripts and books, I think follow your instinct. You know, I think you talk about at what point did we think that this was sort of awards material? Or, I don't know if I thought about that when reading the script, but I just remember when reading the script thinking this felt really watchable. I could almost already visualize the film in my head. And I think if you're already doing that and you're not sort of sitting and critiquing the characters or the scenes, obviously everything always needs a bit of editing, but I think then you're sort of onto something. So I think it's always, stick to your instincts off the bat. And then, I think if you work on something that you care about, then, the pieces kind of fall into place. I think that's kind of what the film demonstrated, that you can have all the budget in the world. And we definitely need higher budgets in the UK. We need more money to play with to make films and different types of films. But I think if you're making something that can tap into the empathy of audiences and crews and actors, then that's something that you can always get off the ground. I think that's what that film sort of taught me.
Great advice. And for you, Piers?
I think it's really reiterated that you have to, because it's so difficult making films. It's just so enjoyable it gives you that extra enjoyment if you care about it, and it's actually about something which can change people's perceptions. So it's without, and that is, and I think that if it's authentic and the filmmaker is being authentic, it just makes the whole process so worthwhile. And it's sort of a bit like Bank of Dave about community banking, which is the most boring subject you could possibly think of.
But made brilliantly.
But it's good.
Exciting.
But you make it as a commercial movie, and it just you're not pushing it down people's throat, but it's like, okay, let's think about this in a slightly different way. And then if you can do that, I think that's just such a powerful thing for us to do as filmmakers. And I think I Swear is a great example of that. So I'm just fascinated to see what the next couple of months is going to entail. And if we can bring John Davidson and Dottie to the BAFTAs, that'll be a dream come true.
Well, I think also just finalizing on that is that it's entertaining. I think, like you say, I remember thinking in one of our small screenings was everyone's laughing constandly.
Oh yes.
And then there were sniffles and people had their tissues. I think that's what we knew. There's something quite special, and that's what people want from cinema. And I think we were, even though we believed in the film, we were surprised because I think recently the Letterboxd 2025 in review just came out, and that was incredible because I think we were 5th overall behind One Battle After Another in Sinners, and then I think in drama we were sort of second and that was the audience's sort of rating, and these are cinephile audiences. So that was really encouraging for us, so that the film sort of got that kind of traction, but can change some people's lives as well while we're entertaining people. So
well, that's kind of the goal, and I think any film like this that succeeds is a kind of a win for cinema and a win for I don't know, just mankind.
And definitely for independent film as well.
Yeah,
absolutely, big time.
Yeah. Well, I just saw Dom. Sorry, last I saw the September the 5th poster behind you, and that's a great movie.
I'm pinching that from one of the jog kits.
He stole it.
Made its way to my room.
But listen, Georgia Bayliff, Piers Tempest, thank you so much. This was so insightful and brilliant, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Dom.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Everyone go see I Swear.
Great
Speak
day.
soon. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Kirk.
Hi, Giles.
How are you, Kirk? You all right?
I'm great, actually, yeah.
Welcome to the Filmmakers Podcast.
Yeah.
This is one of my favourites of the year. I love Scottish comedy. I love comedy. I love heartfelt dramas. And I love a sort of feel-good, independent film that really punches high. And I think you sort of achieved all of those.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. We heard a little bit from Georgia and Piers, but we'd love to hear the origin story from your mouth to start things off.
Okay. So just tiny bit of background. I've been making films for quite a while, and most recently in America. And I think what happened, maybe it was a COVID thing, maybe or maybe not, but it was definitely a moment where I looked at the work I've been doing recently. I looked at where my career started, and remember saying to my wife, "Do you know what? I just want to work on low budget British films from now on." And after working with studios and financiers for 30 years, I want to do whatever I can to have complete creative control. And now I knew that all of those elements were difficult, even for someone who'd been working and delivering commercially successful films for many years. So I had been aware of John Davidson's story since about 1989. I saw a documentary called John's Not Mad. And I wasn't a writer then, I was too young, I wasn't a director, but I remember thinking that if ever I was a writer or director, that would be a film that I would want to see. I just felt like it had an incredible mix of humor and emotion and just, real kind of heartfelt tragedy for this young man. He was only 15 at the time. Then I saw another film when he was about 23, another documentary. I think it was called The Boy Can't Help It, something like that. And I saw this teenager, or in his 20s. He talked about the need to try and get a job. He desperately wanted a job, but who would take him on? When his language was so bad. He talked about trying to find a girlfriend. He's a regular Scottish 23-year-old kid. He just wanted a girlfriend, but he said, "Who's going to take me on when I go up to someone in a pub and introduce myself, and then I spit in their face?" And I thought, it's hard. God, we all know how hard enough it is to try and find a partner in life as you kind of grow up, and imagine how difficult it is for him. So I saw another couple of documentaries, and I just felt really strongly that there was something there. So I tracked him down on Facebook, gave him a call. We had a Zoom call. And apart from the fact that he was like 40 years older, he wasn't that much different. I was so thrilled and privileged to have spent time on a 30-minute Zoom call with him. So I kind of pitched the idea and said, "Look, would I be able to come and see you and have a chat and stuff?" And he said, yeah, come on, come up. So I flew up to Edinburgh, went to see John, tracked him down. I was following a GPS, and I went to the road where I knew he lived, and I could hear him in the car he was in his bedroom, but I could hear the language coming out of the top window. So I thought, okay, I know I'm close. So I went in, and he opened the door, and of course, I was nervous, but imagine how nervous he was. This film director coming up from London town to meet him and sit in his front room. So I could tell he was nervous, but he's really polite and lovely. And the first time he ticked at me,
go on.
Was he opened the door, and I said, "John, nice to meet you." He said, "Kirk, come on in." And I did what I would not. So I said, "Shall I take my shoes off?" And he said, "Let's have
That's so British of you."
He said, "Let's have sex."
He said, "Let's have sex." I did what I always do.
And that's where it all started.
That's where So we did that. And then so then
well, I might as well.
I did. I made my first Tourette's mistake. I tried to make light of it. I acknowledged it. And I think he said, "Let's have sex." And I said, "Shall I take my shoes off first?" Because I thought that was a nice way to break the ice.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
That's really funny. Yeah.
And he immediately said, No, that was just a tick. So we sat down.
So was mine.
And he said, the best thing to do is ignore the ticks. He said, ignore the ticks, but not the person. And that was my first lesson, which stood me in good stead. And I still use that soundbite when I talk to people as well. So
it's that lovely, the lovely moment in the movie when he meets Peter Mulan, and it's just Peter's face.
Peter Mulan?
Mulan, yeah. Where did it come from?
Milan.
Peter Mullen.
Mullen. Why did I say Mulan? That's mad.
Yeah. Petra Mulan.
Never heard that pronunciation.
Petrasso. Yeah. Sorry, idiot of me. Peter Mulan. And that moment was just so funny to me. I just kept laughing because it kept happening, and he kept ignoring it because he'd been told to. And I found that so funny. It was just, I laughed out loud.
When people talk about comedy, they talk about and I remember Monty Python and John Cleese and always talking about this, is that they got to a point where they realized it was the joke on its own was funny, but it's always about the reaction to the joke from someone else. And that's when he says, I think Peter says something like, "Right, I'll let me put you in the picture." And he said, "Put your dick in my hand." And Peter's face was like, okay.
Right.
Anyway.
I mean, that's perfect, like, reacting. Like, like that whole scene was like some of the best example in film, I think, of like someone not replying in dialogue, but in very nuanced expressions. Like, as Giles said, just the way that he reacts to everything was so funny and so nuanced and subtle.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I turned up on that day, and sometimes you turn up on set and it's going to be a slog, it's going to be stressful. I was so excited to shoot those scenes. They were some of my favorite in the film. I knew Peter Moulin and Rob would just do it justice, and it was such a joy that day. But anyway, just going. So I'm sat with John and I'm talking him through it, and I was there for 3 days, and I said, "Look, what do you think?"
It's like, could you fucking leave now? 3 fucking days.
Of course there was stuff coming out, and he said, "You four-eyed fucker," and things like. And then I'd be I'd be quite genuine with him about, like, if we do this, John, I'd really like to make you an executive producer, so you've got a level of control. And he'd nod and he'd go, "Oh, that's great. You fucking liar." And of course, that's what it is. His Tourette's says the opposite often of what he feels. So that was my first lesson. And anyway, he said he was up for it, and I said to him, I was terrified because I said, "Has anyone else? Have you signed any rights? Is anyone else going to do anything?" And he said, "No, there was someone a long time ago. It never happened." So I couldn't quite believe that no one had seen, the value in that story, and what an incredible story it was.
I love the fact that you followed a hunch as well, because I mean, it's interesting what you said about IP. The amount of times I've read an amazing book, or like the John F. Kennedy Stephen King book. I read that. I was like, this is like the best story ever. I can't believe no one's adapted it. And then there was like an HBO series like 8 years ago or something. And it's like the amount of times I've had that.
Yeah.
But the magic when you do follow through a hunch and you just jump on a plane and you go and do the thing.
Yeah.
That's almost like the story's telling you it's ready to be made. I feel it's sort of like,
I think we're all sort of guided to the stories. Well, I think we're guided, but I think internally we start to get that sort of feeling that it could be good and was supposed to be there. So why wait? Get on the plane, jump in a hire car, get to his house before anyone suddenly has the same idea. So I went up and visited a number of times. I sat with him. I just said, "Just tell me everything. Just like everything in your life that you can remember." So he did that. And then Dottie was great about filling in the blanks and the dates and all that kind of stuff. And then I went away, and I'd never worked on a biopic before, but I loved it, actually. I just took, to have all the information already written down was a real joy. Whereas normally, when I work in fiction, I have to create the world, I have to create the characters, the relationships, the subplots. But with John, I just wrote everything up, and I didn't want to miss anything. So my first script was about 190 pages.
Wow.
And that was okay. I knew it was going to be like really fat and needed to be cut down. So I got it down to about 120 pages, and I felt really good about it. I sent...
Was anyone, sorry, Kirk, was anyone involved at this point? Were you doing it all on spec, or had you already spoken to peers? Had you spoken to people you think maybe they want this? Or were you literally, like I said, going on spec and going, "I really like this idea"? Oh, that's peers now, probably.
No, it's not. So the answer is no, it was just me. But I'd met Piers. Hadn't worked with him on another project which didn't happen. And I remembered him and I liked him. And we always said that thing that, maybe we'll work together at some point. So I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to send him like the first 20 pages, see what he thinks, which I did. And he said, "I love it and we need to make it." And I thought, oh, well, that's a good start.
That's a good start. Yeah.
But
things
other
a producer never says.
Yes, there it was.
Yeah. But other than that, there was no input on any level, even from Piers or Georgia during the script writing period. So I just kept my head down and I just kept writing and writing. There's an interesting finance story, which I've only just literally today spoken to the first person about. But early on, we were very concerned that if we went a traditional finance route, then financiers or studios or whoever would say to us, you just need to bring it down a bit, guys. You need to bring the swearing down a bit because it's great and it's all got, no. And I knew that would happen and Piers knew that would happen. So we never asked anyone for finance. What we did do was we went to to a distributor and their reaction was, love it, really like it. We're going to pass. And we're going to pass because we think the swearing is just too much. And unless you wanted to address that, we don't feel that we could sell this film. So that meant that our initial instinct was correct. Running parallel to this is a bit that no one knows. And only today have I just told someone. Running parallel to this, my wife and I had sold our house. You can see where this is going. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Of 30 years, and everything we had was in the house. So we sell the house. We wanted to move to the West Country, but we said basically, let's just rent. Because what if we don't like the move? What if we want to go back to London? It's a big move. So the money, is always I'd never had any money sitting in the bank like this. It's all sitting there ready to go for the next house. So I went to the bank, and Piers had done a budget, and we both agreed that we needed to keep it low budget. And I went to the bank and I said, look, I've got this money sitting in the bank, and if I use that as collateral, would you lend the money to make the film? And they came back and they said yes. They saw the projects that I've been involved with in the past. They were aware that I had kind of like a commercial eye.
Yes, definitely.
That I wasn't some crazy guy who'd never done it before. And they came back and said yes. I hadn't even asked my wife at that point.
Oh my gosh, what did she say?
I was there. I'm in the kitchen.
Making a stew.
Cooking dinner one night with a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And I pitched the idea. And she turned around and looked at me. And it's one of those moments where she's either going to smack you in the face or give you a hug, or you don't know what it is. And she literally said, it took her about 3 seconds. She said, if you feel really strongly about it, then let's do it.
Wow. What a wife.
What a wife. What a wife.
Wow.
Which bank, just as a quick...
Oh, no, I can't say which one it was. Because that will get me in trouble. But so my wife and I put everything on the line to finance the film 100%.
That's, wow, what a story.
Yeah.
That's incredible, Kirk.
Now, just out of interest, I just spoke to one journalist, but basically I was advised not to talk about that. And I think it was probably the right advice, because the reasoning was, whenever a director goes, this is before the film was released, whenever a director goes out and says, we couldn't raise the finance, so I did, I put my house on the line. Then you think, well, it can't be very good if you went to 50 people. But we didn't ask anyone for money. We had one distributor who we were seeing if they'd be interested in a distribution deal. And their reaction was enough for us to say, we know this is going to take years. We know we'll have to dumb it down, or it will never get made. So it's like, you either put your neck on the line and we do it. And for that reason, and I'm sure you've spoken to people and you're aware of projects where there's no outside interference. There's no phone calls at night questioning rushes. Why did you put her in a red dress instead of this? Why did you do this with that? We need the characters to fall in love. You can't cast Robert Aramayo because no one knows who he is. He looks great, but no way are we going to give you the money. So all of that was just brushed aside. And I had the best experience I've ever had on a film set. I was surrounded by wonderful crew, some of which I had known for like 30 years. And there was just the most amazing sense of responsibility to serve John and tell his story. That was I wasn't the most important person on the set. Rob Aramayo wasn't the most important person. The spirit of John was on the set every day, and all any of us wanted to do was serve his story, which he'd been beaten up, he'd been told he was insane, he'd been told he'd end up in prison, he'd ended up with an MBE, so honestly, it's I cannot believe, and other crew members and cast members have said they cannot believe it could ever physically get that better, with that complete freedom of creativity and feeling a responsibility to John.
It's amazing, and it's an amazing story, and it's so lovely for you to share it as well. I think, a lot of our filmmakers who do listen to this and have been on have put their own money into their own films. A lot have done it. I think this is kind of a bigger scale. The biggest scale I know of is Fernando Meirelles did it for City of God. He put $2 million of his own money of his house, and obviously that did incredibly well in his career. But he didn't know at the time if it was going to do well. But already, I swear, has made, 6-7 million in the UK box office? Is that right?
Yeah, I think about that.
It's an incredible achievement, Kirk. You've got to be so proud of taking that chance, taking that risk, going up in the first place. The whole hustle of trying to find a story that we love as filmmakers is really hard. How long did it take from you starting to write that script process and to being on set?
It was all super fast. Again, there was nothing to get in our way. And I was really inspired. I think I wrote it in about 7 weeks.
Nice.
I had a draft. Of course, I kept working on it, but within 7 weeks, I had the first draft.
Yeah.
So I think, off the top of my head, I didn't meet John Davidson until the end of November 2022. I wrote the script in 2023. We were shooting 2024, and we released last October. I think that's about right. Yeah. Something. It's not uncommon for people to say, yeah, we got there in the end. It took 10 years. I said to John when I first met him, I said, look, I don't think this is going to be happening next year. I said, it could be a 10-year process.
Yeah.
But again, cutting through all that red tape, all those meetings, all those begging sessions to get money and getting the bond and getting distribution and all that. It was just like we just walked straight through it. It was amazing.
It's amazing, which means you could go at the other end and go, hey, we've completed our film and we're really proud of it. It's really great. Who wants it?
Oh,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then to see Rob, picking up, because whenever I've talked about casting in the past, what you want financiers to understand is that you don't really want to be on that with that person who's been making films for 30 years and is great and is mired and had some hits and some failures. What you really want is to catch the person who's on the turn, who's no one has ever heard about. But if you give them the opportunity to show their talents in your film, everyone is talking about. And there's Rob. Not only nominated for Rising Star, but nominated in the big grown-up acting category. Sorry, not nominated, longlisted in the big grown-up proper category with Timothée Chalamet and
I think he will be nominated. Yeah. So yes, we hope so.
We'll hope so.
Especially for the BAFTA side of things.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting how things have changed. I mean, what you mentioned about the interference, I feel like in the past there was more like memorable studio sort of, studios that had like a story involvement, and it's something where now it's quite tough to find someone that will endorse this kind of thing because it feels like risky. I mean, how do you sort of navigate that in your other films? I mean, just getting around that red tape, or placating people but making sure it's done in a way that serves the story and it sort of gets things made. And
You mean in previous films or in?
Yeah. Because I mean, this is obviously the sort of dream as a filmmaker is to, you've got a vision, you execute the vision, and I suppose the counter side to that is not every filmmaker can do that on their own, and some of them will like railroad a whole load of money that's going to then cause a big headache for whoever's releasing it. So it's an interesting one. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like every film I've ever done in the past I've hated or had a bad experience. I had some amazing experiences. Waking Ebb was amazing. My first film, probably the closest I've come to I Swear, in that it was so low budget again that no one really cared. The financiers didn't really care. I think we had 4 financiers with Waking Ned who put in £500,000 each. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but in the world of finance, they didn't really care. It was just like a little flutter for them, a little gamble.
And this was 97 as well, so where things were different in the world, right?
Yeah. And then, films like Nanny McPhee were incredible for me. Working Title were amazing. Emma Thompson was amazing. I think it was really when I went to America, and I'm not the first British director to comment on how different it is basically over there. There's many, many more people involved, much more money being thrown at projects. And it's just different, really. It's very different. And I did that, and I did okay, and the films did well. But you get to a certain age and you think, I don't want to do that anymore. I've done that. This is what I want to do with the rest of my career.
That's so interesting. Casting. Let's talk about casting, Robert, because I imagine you went through a whole gamut of casting, because now you're in a position where I can cast who we want. We can get the right actor for the role. Talk us through that process and finding someone. I mean, it really is so important, casting. It's, a lot of directors say it's 80% of the job, if not more. How was it for you on this job, searching for someone who would be right for this?
Well, it was everything. Well, that comes on 2 levels, really, because John is played by 2 different people. He's played by Scott Ellis Watson up until the age of 15, and then he's played by Rob from mid-20s to early 50s.
Yes.
So starting with Scott, first of all, I've been casting long enough, and I've worked with a lot of kids over the years. Nanny McPhee was a good example, but also commercials and stuff, just to know how difficult it is to find those real gems of kids. So we started early. I cannot remember how many hundreds of people we saw, interviewed, put on camera, but we had press campaigns in Scotland. We had social media campaigns. We had people on the streets. We had people in shopping centres, going to football clubs, trying to find the young John. And with 2 weeks to go, and remember, in the background, this is my own money. With 2 weeks to go, we didn't have a young John. And everyone was saying, it's all right, it'll be all right. And I'm thinking, I don't know if it will. We've been going for 3 months and I haven't found anyone. And what happened was a young man was sent the pages and asked if he would self-tape. And his mum put him on tape, and he was interested in drama, and he was part of a local theatre group. In the same household as a younger brother was Scott Ellis Watson. And his mum literally said, Scott, do you want to do one? And he's like, I'm all right. And it's like, are you sure? Because I'm here and I got the camera to and he said, oh, go on then, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. And he did it, and he was incredible. So like a lot of these things, that was a complete fluke. We worked hard to find him, but we didn't really have any control over how we actually got to him in the end. And I knew that if we didn't find a young man who could hold the attention of the audience for the first 25
minutes,
not 5 minutes, 25 minutes, then they wouldn't even stay around, or they'd change channel or walk out the cinema before they got to Robert Aramayo. So forget Rob. It's like it was all about Scott to begin with. We secured Scott. And then Rob came from Lauren Evans, casting director.
Great casting director, yeah. Sex Education, absolutely.
No, she's amazing and got really, really good taste. And she loved this project, and coincidentally is winning awards because she wasn't restricted either. So she could do what she wanted. She could do her job properly. And she loved the job because no one was saying to her, it's got to be this person because their last film did 8 million in the UK, so we've got to try and get them, or or there's an American, maybe we could use that. It wasn't that at all. The question was, Lauren, who do you think is out there who would be great? And of course, a number of people were put forward. But I saw Rob and I watched his films, and there was a film called Behind Her Eyes. And you wouldn't naturally look at that film and say, oh my God, Robert Aramayo, he's going to be perfect for it. But there was something about him, and Lauren in particular said, you have to meet him and you have to tape him. So I met with him on Zoom and still had a good feeling about him, and decided to take him up to Galashiels, and he wanted to go and he wanted to meet John. I always wanted John to be comfortable with who played him. I didn't need to; it wasn't a contractual thing, but it just felt like a good sort of karma thing, that John had an approval. So we spent some time with John. That meant that Rob was able to see John in the flesh and see the ticks and get hit in the balls by him and all that kind of stuff. And just after that, I just thought, I just know he's the right guy. This is the other shocker. Okay.
Yeah.
He never screen tested Robert Aramayo. Not once. Didn't do it. And then, so I just knew he was right. I didn't need to see him trying to do it that early, because he told me what his research process would be. And that was a 3-month process. So I took a gamble, another one.
Ultra gamble.
Ultra gamble, yeah. Double a quit. Double
You might
yeah,
as well
double
right
a
now.
yeah.
You're in it.
And I thought, I believe that by the end of this 3-month period, this young man is going to be incredible. And that was it. And he went away. He accepted the part. I think he always said to his agent, I cannot believe I've been offered this without taping for it.
Yeah.
It is a bit insane looking back. I don't know why, but it just felt right. And at the end of the day,
follow the hunch.
Yeah, when you don't have all these pressures and all these people to answer to, it's all about instinct. I mean, that's all it is instinct.
Yeah. And your instinct is so right here. He's incredible in this film.
He is incredible. So I never saw it. And then we got closer and closer with like a week to go. And I remember saying very politely, Rob, any chance of
can I have a little look at some,
hit
me in the balls?
3 months. Yes. Yes, to help settle my blood pressure.
Just please.
And he's like, all right, I can do it tomorrow. I can't. And of course, he was speaking Scottish by then. So probably for the 6 or 8 weeks prior to shooting, he only ever spoke to me with his Scottish accent. I said, all right, I can't do it tomorrow. I'm a bit busy. Anyway, it didn't work. I never saw it. I didn't see it till day one on the.
Oh my God. How was that? How was seeing it for the first time on camera?
It was as good as I ever thought it would be. The tone of it was spot on, and I felt great. Yeah, it was all good.
Was there quite a lot of improvisation in terms of? I mean, from a like sound bites and bits and bobs. It sounds like it wasn't too forced in terms of whether ticks came in and the performance, but in terms of like maybe the general dialogue and how scenes sort of ran through, like was that fairly loose or fairly structured?
So I had a script which, of course, had to have ticks in it because otherwise it didn't make sense as a script. So I added ticks which I'd heard John speak or I was familiar with, and then some like spunk for milk I just added because I just thought, what's the stupidest, silliest, funniest, most entertaining thing?
Peter Mulan saying spunk for milk.
So all that stuff was me. But one of the first things that Rob said when he started was, do you expect me to tick exactly what you've written in the places that you've written? In fact, I think he said to me, you don't expect me to do that, do you? And it was a smart question because the whole nature of Tourette's is you don't know what comes out. You don't know when, you don't know where. And if we had followed a strict script and he said every time, fuck off in exactly the same place, or I'm a paedophile, then the actor, Peter Mulan, would not have been shocked, surprised, would have had nothing to get his teeth into or bounce off of. And I thought, of course not.
But so, just on the counter of that, were there ever any scenes where, because I mean, there are scenes where it would maybe be distracting and there aren't any ticks. I don't know if that was just literally like happenstance. And it just ended up that way. But there's certain, I can't think of any examples particularly, but there's certain where it's like it's either very minimal or it's not in there, and it sort of feels like the film needs a breath from that, because it's not the focus of the scene, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's John. That is John Davidson. So sometimes I'll have a Zoom call with him, and he will not tick once. And if you guys were with me, we'd hang up, and you'd say, you didn't do it. Why didn't you? It doesn't work like that. A lot of it is to do with anxiety. So if John is in his first interview with Peter Mullen, the ticks are flying in, full on. If he's sat quietly out the back having a cigarette with Lucy, asking if he can help her in any way, and if he knows that she understands his condition because she has the same condition, which she actually does in real life, then there's very little ticks. And that's kind of how it goes with John. Although even John would say it's so unpredictable that some days is the complete opposite. He's got a really relaxing day. There's no worries, no stress, and he's ticking all over the place. Another day he's got to go to the bank or for something, or he's got to speak to someone, and suddenly he's not ticking. It's completely all over the place. But Rob and I agreed that if this was a full-on ticking fest for 2 hours, it would drive people nuts, and that wasn't reflective of John's life either. So,
so good. And on your directing style, do you storyboard? Do you think about your shots with your DP? Do you go through all that kind of work beforehand? It definitely felt like Waking Ned for me. This movie, there was so much of that in there, and I loved seeing that because it's one of my favorite films. And it was really interesting your style choice of camera, where you're placing it, what you're doing with it. Can you talk us and our listeners through how you would plan a day, how you just sort of think about your shots in a scene?
Yeah, so not storyboarding. The only time I storyboard these days is, if it's a visual effects scene or something and it helps people, but that wasn't the case in this, or if it's a title sequence or something like that. But otherwise, my main focus is on spending time on location with the DP, or sometimes just sat down at a table. I mean, with James Bland, I always set out time in pre-production to go through every single scene in detail, and even start to block and draw out the shape of the room and who's coming where and where the light's coming from. So we talk through every single scene in detail, and we actually do little sketches with how we think we will cover the scene. Now, on the day, there's always something that changes. There's something more interesting, but I could turn up literally on any day of that shoot, open my script, and I've got my shot list. I've got my little sketches, I've got blocking plans, and I do not like to leave things to the last minute and to set, because you're just wasting time and wasting energy solving problems that you could have worked out in a hotel room 3 months before.
Yeah.
Just sat there. So I work out as much as I can, and then we block the scene. So that's kind of initially how I work. With regards to I Swear, we talked a lot about the physicality of John's condition and Tourette. So if you're looking at me now with a head and shoulders, if I do that, you're not seeing why I'm punching, or if I'm, if I suddenly jump up. So we talked about that quite a lot, and that we concluded that we need to shoot the film wider than we would normally do. We need to hold wide master shots, which I love doing. I mean, every filmmaker loves doing that. It's just whether you've got the material, whether the material is interesting enough within that wide shot to hold it for an audience. That's usually what it comes down to. But ideally, we were holding wider shots and 2 shots, so that if Rob does anything, we're not anticipating it with a cut. So let's say, for example, I was shooting on this frame, and we're approaching a point in a scene where I know he punches out because we've got that on the wider shot. I didn't want then to have to cut wide and flag to the audience that I'm going wide as there's something coming up. They won't see it if it's not wide. So we shot wider. James from a very early stage said, what if we tried to make this like the most beautiful documentary that we'd ever seen? And there was something about the fact that John had been shot on a documentary at all different ages, which we kind of nodded to as well. And that all transferred right the way through to sound. I first worked with Simon Hayes on Nanny McPhee years ago, and since then he's gone on. He's won Oscars. He's been nominated for Oscars, BAFTAs, and things. Yeah. He does all Guy Ritchie's films, and he's pretty serious sound guy now, and he loved doing this film because we shot with one camera, and that allowed him. A sound guy will always love shooting with one camera because it means the sound man can get in with a boom and a and pick up live real sound as it is within the atmosphere of that location, whether it's council flats or a tiny little room or kitchen.
I'm guessing you're doing slightly longer takes as well, so you don't have continuity sort of issues with the ticks and where they're moving.
Continuity, yeah.
He's been holding on to that one for
I guess
a
it is
while.
an issue though if you're doing it different times, different takes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we were letting the camera run, but the single camera meant that Simon could get in close and they could record proper sound. To shoot 2 or 3 cameras, which most films, or certainly bigger films, do these days.
Mm-hmm.
The sound guy can't stand anywhere because he stands there and someone says, "No, you're in my shot," and he moves and "No, you're in my shot." So
you're in the shadow, or
the whole kind of documentary feel was carried on through the sound as well. So yeah, and then with regards to tone on set, I always like to have a relaxed but focused tone. I want people to be able to do their best work. I've never had any time for screamers and shouters. And trust me, when I worked as a runner, when I started out in the industry, that was in the 80s, and directors were kind of gods then. They
tyrants.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's never been my thing. So my theory is that if people are relaxed but focused and motivated to do their best work, that's kind of the best situation. With Rob, between takes, we would have really lovely chats, and we would often have a really good laugh. And I didn't deliberately do that, but I could see that it was helping release some of the stress and pressure of acting as a character who is so pent up and so tightly strung with this condition. So I can't claim that I was doing it on purpose to help relax Rob, but I think he would say it served that purpose.
Yeah.
It was just a really, really wonderful shoot, and it was mostly in Glasgow, in and around Glasgow.
Great. How many days did you shoot?
We shot for 30 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice
And a
amount.
ludicrous number of locations.
Yeah, did you have
I think it was like 70 or something like that.
Yeah,
but
so
Peter
many.
Peter Mulan, who you're mentioning, I had Peter for 3 days. That's all.
Whoa.
Wow. He plays such a huge part. He contributed such a huge part just in no more.
What? That's the whole nightmare for your production manager, and you're trying to make that work because he's got all the stuff in the community centre. Plus then you've got the hall, the lawyer's place. Can't think of the words right now.
The
courthouse. Exactly. Yeah. So you've got to try and manage all that.
We did that in the middle of the night. We shot right through the night doing that because we couldn't get a real courthouse in the day, and we couldn't afford to build one. So we did that through the night.
What was the hardest bit of the shoot, like out of everything?
I think it was the schedule, funnily enough, that you touched on, and the weather. When you look at a schedule like that, you cannot afford to waste a day for weather. So we turn up somewhere and it'd be pouring with rain, or we'd just block the scene and then the rain would come. You have to remember this is Scotland.
Yes,
it's no surprise to people who live in Scotland or grew up in Scotland. The weather can be, a real challenge. So I think that was it. You never really knew where you were when you were shooting on location outside. And even if it was sunny where you turned, we shot the kids' football match. We turned up and it was pouring with rain, and that was forecast for hours. So we started to shoot in the rain. And then 10 minutes later, the sun comes out. So we had to reshoot what we'd shot.
Oh my God.
It starts raining again 10 minutes later. So, and then you got all the kids running around. You have to try and keep them dry because otherwise the continuity is lost. And so it was all the lower budget stresses, schedule and budget, really.
Yeah. It's a huge achievement. Really well done. Look, this deserves all the praise and love. We're shouting it from the rooftops already. We did do on our last episode talking about awards season, saying how good it was, even before we talked to you and Piers and Georgia. It's just an incredible achievement. You've done really well with this film. Amazing across the board, isn't it, Dom? We're just so
it's just it's exactly the kind of films we love watching, and
supporting
the story of how it got made, and getting a decent release at the end of it, and all the awards chatter. It sort of feels like a great sort of signpost of hopefully where the film industry in England is capable of going.
Yeah. So it's finally to finish us off. When you just before you were making Waking Ned, and you wanted to direct, you'd like you say you'd been a runner in a lot of places. What if you could go back now and talk to that person, you younger self before Waking Ned, to say it's all right, you will be making films. This is what you want to do. What do you think you'd say?
I think just follow your instinct. It's like it occurred to me when I first started directing that actually, when you look around a film set and there are anywhere from 40 to 80 people, you know, I often question, why me? Why am I in that position? And I think it really comes down to instinct. My instinct, you know, if I'm employed to make a film, people are employing my instinct. And if you stop listening to that instinct, then you kind of have you're just a robot, really. You have nothing. So I know when I was making Waking Ned Divine, I was listening to my instinct when I was writing it, when I was researching it, when I was shooting it. And I know that however many years later, probably 35, 40 years later, when I sat down to write I Swear, I was still listening to my instinct and that little voice in your head. And I think it's when people get distracted and stop listening to that voice and that gut feeling and that instinct, then it's a slippery slope.
Very good. We haven't really heard of that one before, I don't think, on the podcast. That's like the way you phrased it was really interesting.
Beautiful. Kirk Jones, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Well done with everything, the podcast and stuff.
Ah, bless you. Thank you.
It's our pleasure.
Take care. Cheers, Kirk. Good luck with everything. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.